Okay, this is a review on the Conics chapter, so let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to check sure and make sure my volume's up so I don't waste my time here. So let me make sure. Okay, we're good. All right, so here we go. So the distance formula between x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2 is that formula right there. Okay, you got to memorize that. You're gonna use that for the rest of your math life. I'm telling you will. Same with midpoint formula, you guys. Between the midpoint, you average the x's and average the y's right there. So find the distance between 4, 6 and 7, 3. There's my distance formula right there. So I do the second x minus the first x. It doesn't matter which one you call x1, y1, and x2, y2. Anyways, and you plug them in, and you're going to get 9 plus 9, or square root of 18, and which becomes 3 root 2. All right. Find the midpoint of the line segment. Okay, this is where we just add the x's together, divide by 2, and the y's together, divide by 2. So there it is right there. All right, so now this is a parabola. We're going to graph this parabola right here. Identify the focus, directrix, and axis of symmetry. Okay, so we're going to rewrite it in standard form. So it looks like this, y equals 4px. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 12. Okay, and then the focus is going to be p comma 0, where p is next to, so this 4p is going to be, you'll see just a second. Multiply both sides by 12, and we get 12x equals y squared, or y squared equals 12x. Okay, so this 4p now equals that 12 right there. All right, so p equals 3, so that gives us the focus to be 3. Okay, so the focus is, whoops, I clicked too many, is p comma 0, so it's going to be 3 comma 0. And then the directrix, you guys, is x equals negative p, so x equals negative 3. And then notice if it was x squared equals 4py, so if it was in that form instead of y squared equals 4px, like 12x is right here, then the focus would be 0 comma p instead of p comma 0. And the directrix would be y equals negative p instead of x equals negative p. All right. Alrighty, so that's a parabola. Okay, this one is going to be, looks like a circle right here. Okay, so we're going to identify the radius. All right, so first by adding y squared to both sides, that'll get us in standard form. Okay, so this is in the form of x squared plus y squared equals my radius squared. So the center is at 0, 0, and the radius is the square root of 64, so it's 8. And so there's the graph right there. And these little squares are going by 2. So if the center is right there at 0, 0, then just go up 8, go to the right 8, go down 8, and go to the left 8. And then that would be your circle. That's your bounded by for your circle right there. All right. Okay, so this one's an ellipse, you guys. Whoops, sorry, I hit my chair right here. So I know it's an ellipse because it's a x squared and a y squared, and there's a plus between them, and there's different numbers in front of the x squared and the y squareds. So ellipses, we want them to equal 1, not 16. So we're going to divide everything by 16 first to put it in standard form. So there it is, divided by 16. And we get x squared over 4 plus y squared over 16 equals 1. All right, now on ellipses, we want to know which one is the bigger number. Which one has the bigger number underneath it? So the y squared has the bigger number. So this is my a squared, and this is my b squared right here. All right, and then so since 16 is the bigger number, a squared is 16 and b squared is 4, making a equal to 4 and b equal to 2, because it's the square root of those. All right, so the vertices are, since it's vertical, and I know it's vertical because the bigger number is underneath the y squared, then the vertices are going to be vertical from each other. So 0 comma plus or minus 4. These are vertical points right here. And the covertices will be plus or minus 2 comma 0. And I say this, you guys, since ellipses have plus signs, then your c squared formula has a minus sign. Okay, so when hyperbolas have minus signs, and your c squared formulas have plus signs. Okay, so what I'm going to do is add 4 plus 16. Whoops, I'm getting too many pages in there. I'm sorry, 16 minus 4, a squared minus b squared, and you get 12. The square root of 12 is plus or minus about 3.5-ish, you guys. So since it's vertical, you guys, then the focus points are going to be vertical, so it's going to be 0 plus or minus 3.5, and then there's your graph right there. Okay, so my vertices are plus or minus 4. There's my 4 and negative 4. My covertices are negative 2 and positive 2, and there's 3.5 and negative 3.5. Alrighty? All right, and these are the equations of ellipses, you guys. Notice A is always bigger than B, so it just depends on which one has the bigger number. If the bigger number is underneath the X, it's horizontal. If the bigger number is underneath the Y, it's vertical. And since ellipses have these plus signs, you guys, the c squared formulas have the minus signs, okay? All right, So graph this guy. Okay, this one's a hyperbola. I know it's to be a hyperbola because there's a minus sign on this. Okay, and hyperbolas we want them to equal 1, not 36. So we're going to go ahead and divide everything by 36. Okay, so that way it equals 1. Okay, now on hyperbolas, we don't care about the bigger number. We care about which one comes first. Since x squared comes first, this hyperbola is going to be shooting to the left and to the right, you guys. Okay, so if x squared comes first, it's horizontal. If y squared comes first, it's vertical, you guys. It goes up and down. So hyperbola or horizontal, if you can just pretend like this would be a going like this, and then on this side it would be the mirror image going like that. That would be a horizontal one. A vertical one would be like a parabola and its mirror image and upside down parabola down there. Okay, and the asymptotes are always you square root underneath the y over square root underneath the x. Okay, whatever's underneath the y goes on top, and whatever's underneath the x goes on the bottom. That's my asymptotes. All right, so here we are, back to this problem right here. So a squared equals 9, b squared equals 4. So a equals 3 and b equals 2. So the vertices of this horizontal, because x is coming first, this horizontal hyperbola are going to be plus or minus 3. These guys are vertical with each other. And since hyperbolas have minus signs, c squared formula has a plus sign, so I add 9 plus 4 and get 13, and the square root of 13 is about 3.6. And since it's horizontal, then my focus points are going to be 3.6 left and right. It'll be horizontal also. Okay, the asymptotes are always square root underneath the y, so square root 4 over square root underneath the x. It's always what's under y square root, what's under x square root. Okay, kind of like slope formula. Y's always go on top. All right, so there's the graph right there. And so let's talk about this for a second. Okay, so here's my plus or minus. Here's the vertices the green guys. This is -3. This is +3. That's my vertices right here. And this red guy is my 3.6-ish. So my focus points are plus or minus 3.6. And the asymptotes are these dotted lines right here. So what I do is I go up 2 to the right 3 from the center, up 2 to the right 3, okay, and then go from the center down 2 to the right 3 because it's plus or minus 2. And then what that does, and then you connect that dotted line right there because it's down 2 to the right 3 and connect that through the center, and it goes all the way that way, and then up 2 to the right 3 through the center, and it goes all the way that way. And your asymptotes tell you how wide to make your hyperbolas right there. So it makes them spread out or really skinny right there. Okay, all right, so now go to part 2. So here's part 2 right here. Okay, so classify the conic and write its equation in standard form, then graph the equation. I can already see this is going to be a hyperbola, but this is why, you guys. Okay, I was going to say something I better not. So if it's in this form right here, see this a right here is this -4. B, there is no xy, so B would be like 0. C would be the 1 right there. D would be the 32. E would be that -12. And F would be the -32. And if you just do the B squared minus 4AC, if B and C, or if B is equal to 0 and A is equal to 0, then this ends up being a circle, you guys. And if it's less than 0 right there. Okay, let's see. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0 and either one of them is equal to 0, it's an ellipse. I know that, look, you guys, I know this is going to be a hyperbola because both of them are being squared, and this is a minus right here. Okay, so I know it's going to be a hyperbola. All right, but using what they did b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. So it ends up being a hyperbola, but I knew it was going to be a hyperbola because it's going to be a 1y squared minus a 4x squared. Okay, so what we have to do now is complete the square. All right, so let's group all the y's together, group all the x's together, and I threw the 32 over on that side. All right, now to complete the square, I have to have a 1y squared and a 1x squared. If it's not a 1x squared, then I have to factor it out. So I pulled the 4 out. Actually, I pulled a -4 out. And I also pulled a -4 out of the 32. Because just imagine if I did -4 times -8 and redistributed it back through, it would get me a positive 32. I can't complete the square unless that's a 1x squared, so I had to pull that out. All right, here we go. Half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. So if I add 36 inside of here, I have to add 36 over here. All right, and then do this. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to add 16 on the left but it ends up being a negative 64 on the right because it's actually negative 4 times this 16, and negative 4 times 16 is a negative 64. So I had to balance it out over there. All right, this quantity becomes y minus 6 squared. This quantity right here becomes x minus 4 squared, but there's a negative 4 in there. And then add all those numbers up and you get 4. Okay, now this is a hyperbola. We got to have it equal to 1, so we're going to divide by 4, and I get that equation right there. All right, so I have that equation up there. Here, hk is, h is always the number that hangs out with x, and k is always the number that hangs out with y. Okay, the asymptotes are always square root under the y over square root under the x, so here's the center right here at 4, 6. The vertices are plus or minus 2 from the center, so since it's vertical, it's going up and down, then I'm going to go up 2 and down 2 from this 6 right here. Okay, so there it is right there. There it is at 4, 6 right there. And then I went up 2, each square is 2, and went down 2, and then my asymptotes are up 2 over 1. There's an announcement.
Jordan, please
I'm at school,
call
sorry.
extension 5650.
Sorry. At school, and they do announcements a lot at this school. Okay, solve the system right here. All right, so I'm going to solve. Looks like I have this one's a hyperbola, this one's a parabola, and we're going to see where these guys intersect, but we're going to solve it algebraically. So I'm going to take that bottom equation and solve for y, divide by 9, and then I'm going to substitute that in for the y up on top right there. Okay, so here it is right here. It's going to be substituted in. And then I'm going to square that, so I square 2/9 and it gets me 4, I'm sorry, square negative 2/9.
Jordan,
Oops,
please
sorry.
call
This should be,
5650.
sorry about the
Jordan,
announcements.
5650.
This school is terrible on announcements. They do them all the time. This should be an 81 right there, you guys. It should be 2 squared is 4 and 9 squared is 81. So this should be an 81. And so what's going to happen is these 81s are going to cancel right there. Sorry about that. That should be an 81. So see, the 81s cancel, and I'm left with just a negative 4x squared. So pretend like that's an 81 right there. Sorry about that. All right, and then I'm going to divide by 4, but I'm going to divide by negative 4 because my leading coefficient is this. So this is my biggest power, so I've got to divide by this negative 4. And when I divide everything by negative 4, I should be a negative 4. There's my second mistake, darn it. All right, and then I'm going to factor that. This is right here. I just divide by, and there should be a negative 4 right there. All right, and then when I divide by negative 4, I'm going to go ahead and factor. And when I factor and set this factor equals 0, I get x squared minus 4 equals 0, and x squared plus 1 equals 0. This will never equal 0 because this is positive, and when you're adding 1, you know, anything squared is a positive number, and when you add 1, I can never make this side equal to 0, but I can make this one equal to 0 when x is plus or minus 2. So you get x equals plus or minus 2, and then you plug plus or minus 2, I plug them back in right here where my cursor is and get plus or minus, or negative 8/9 in both cases on that.